First, good afternoon, good evening, or good morning, depends on where you are. Uh, I'm very happy and maybe I'm very honored to be here to present the story of our community and under the title of Promoting Open Science via Grassroots-led work in a developing country. So, firstly, a bit information about my background. I was trained in cognitive neuroscience and from very beginning. So currently I'm working as a faculty member at the School of Psychology, Nanjing Normal University, Nanjing, China. So because my background is in psychology and cognitive neuroscience, so maybe you have no idea what I'm doing because it's quite different from what you are doing. Most of you are doing here. So basically, we are trying to understand what is the neural foundation and the principles behind people's mind and behavior. So we use some methods like MRI to scan people's brain and uh, trying to find a relationship between their reasoning, their cognitive process, and the brain activities, for example. Of course, I am from developed country, China. So and also psychological science is like part of modern science. It was imported to China and it's different from psychological science in many other countries as well. So firstly, I will provide a bit background information about psychological science in China, I mean mainland China. Then I will introduce you how the Chinese Open Science Network, a grassroots network for promoting open science using Chinese, got started. And then I will introduce you the current status of COSN and then the future of COSN. So firstly, very brief background about psychological science in China. As many other developing countries, the modern science was imported to our society. So around 100 years ago, the first psychological lab was established in Beijing, now the capital of our country. And like 3 years later, the first psychological science department was established in Nanjing, the city where I am. And then the Chinese Psychological Society was created. But then the development of psychological science was disrupted by the war and the instability of the society until 80s. And thanks to the fast growth of economy in the past 2 decades, psychological science really started to grow in the past 2 decades. So many trained scholars come back to China and start their own team, and we start to have many more departments of psychological science in China. I think currently there are more than 100 universities have a department of psychology. So nowadays, if you want to find a job in in university as a psychological students, it's quite competitive now. So here's the visualization of the brief history. Of course, it's very brief and incomplete, but I just try to give you a bit taste of the our department or our field in China. So how COS can get started? As the whole psychological science, our grassroots start with a field study or replication failure. Around like more than 10 years ago, when I was still in my master's program, I was really attracted by this study. It was very interesting. It found that our human social judgment might be influenced by the incidental sensory input. For example, when you're holding a heavier clipboard, you are reading the social issue you are reading as more importance than when you are holding a lighter clipboard. So basically, it's kind of a very interesting relationship, and I was quite attracted to this concept. So I tried to extend this study to a new concept like the relationship between heaviness and heavier punishment, because like they also use the same words in many different languages. So I conducted an experiment where I asked participants to hold clipboard with different weight and then ask them to read, make judgment about punishment. But I didn't find any significant results between groups who holding a heavier clipboard versus those holding a lighter clipboard. So I was very curious why I didn't find good results as they did. So I thought maybe it was the relationship only exists between heaviness and importance. So I tried to replicate. So I did my first replication study, the science, the one that published in Science, but I didn't find significant results, which means I failed to replicate their findings. And then I contacted the authors, but they did not respond to me. Many years later, I found that actually I was not alone. I was not the only one who tried to replicate their study and the field. For example, in 2018, there was one study published in Nature Human Behavior. The first one is the study I was trying to replicate. So they also failed to replicate the original findings. There are more actually. For example, this one published in PLOS One, and they failed to replicate the original findings. And also in even like a larger scale, many lab study, they invited many different teams to replicate the same study. So as you can see, this one was the weight embodiment. So there are many different teams. They independently replicate the original study, but they didn't find they could not replicate the original findings. So it's not just one failure. It's actually a crisis in our whole field. In 2015, a large team consists of like more than 200 authors. They replicated 100 studies published in psychological journals, and they found that around 40% of them can be replicated. So this really make people start worrying about the rigor, the scientific rigor, and the standard of the whole field. And we also have like in 2020 have a very big scandal. A social psychologist who faked his data and published in very prestigious journals, but no one found that the data was faked. Only after whistleblowers reported to the headmaster of the university. So we have many problems, and since then, people starting to working on improve the whole field. Just as Andrew Gilman from Columbia put it. So what has happened down here was that the wind is changing. So which means that many policies and practices start to change in the international psychological science. For example, new statistics are proposed and recommended. Like you have to plan your sample size based on power analysis, or you need to adapt the Bayesian statistics. You need to open your data. You need to pre-register your plan before you collect data. And we have new societies like the Society for the Improvement of Psychological Science. We have new journals to promote new method and practices, like the advances in method and practices in psychological science. We have new infrastructure like OSF, which was started by Center for Open Science. The co-founder of Center for Open Science is Brian Nosek, who is also a psychologist. So we have all these kind of new standard and new practices at that time, around 2015. At that time, I was a graduate student pursuing my PhD. Maybe many of you are still pursuing your PhD now. So back in China, no one was talking about all these issues in the community. When you go to conference, for example, the annual conference of the Chinese Psychological Science, Chinese Psychological Society, there's no symposium discussing the reproducibility, new methods, and like new standards. But if you look at the English media and the journals, they are changing their standard in a very fast pace. So as a graduate students at my early career stage, I thought, are we left behind again, like many 100 years ago? So maybe we need to do something. We need to like catch up. We need to know what was happening outside China. So we're starting to try to do something. Basically, the first thing we're doing is trying to draft a Chinese paper about the crisis, the replication crisis. And then we finished that paper at the end of 2015 and submitted to a Chinese journal. Actually, a bit surprising to us, one reviewer was very positive to our paper and recommend to publish it. So we are really like encouraged by senior researchers in the community. And so then encouraged by the publication of this study, we decided to organize our first workshop as a pre-conference workshop at a newer meeting of a Chinese Psychology Society. And then this application for holding a pre-conference workshop was also accepted. It was quite exciting. At that workshop, we introduced the idea of reproducibility crisis, how to use open science framework, how to open data, how to pre-registration, and the TOP guideline, and also how to use R, the language we're using for data analysis. And the workshop was quite successful because there are like more than 100 participants attend this conference, this workshop in person, and it was free, of course. And next year we continued the workshop also as a pre-conference workshop in Chongqing. This time we tried to create a WeChat group. So WeChat is the most dominant social media in China. Almost everyone uses it, and it has a function that you can create a group with limited group size of 500. So we created a WeChat group where attendees of our workshop can form a virtual community, and we discuss reproducibility and open science related issue in the group. And we also created a WeChat official account for open science for this conference. First, need to post some announcement, then we start to post other blogs or technical blogs and translations. So basically, after the second workshop, we starting to have a small interest group based on WeChat. And then we continue to do this kind of educational events. Like the workshop was continue, and we're also starting to translate some materials because many students, like master students, undergrads, even PhD students, they are not so fluent in English. So they also choose to read material in Chinese instead of English. So we decided to translate many resources into Mandarin, into Chinese, and post it on our WeChat official account. Most of them are about methods, like statistical methods or resources that we can use in our research. For example, we translated this one, 10 common statistical mistakes. And this is quite popular blog lately. And we also feel that one workshop per year is not enough. So we need to study a new stuff related to open science and reproducibility regularly. So we started a journal club and we read open science and reproducibility related papers every week. So at that time, we, as young researchers, as early researchers, and without any guidance, we feel quite lost it. So we have a very elective acronym called the Weekly Learning Open Science Team, just acronym as we lost. So we use this acronym for a whole year, and we read a lot of papers related to reproducibility and open science. Lately, we decide to change the acronym to Open Minds because we think that we know that open science is the right direction. We're no longer lost. So we decide that we can change our journal club to a new acronym. So we hope we change it to Open Minds because we hope that everyone attend this journal club open-minded to what we are reading. Because at that time, I think most of our training in a traditional way. So open science practices are quite new to us. It's quite weird to us, and it's counterintuitive. So we remind our attendees to be open-minded towards these kind of practices. Then comes the pandemic, and so we have to, everyone is stay at home, and we cannot continue our in-person workshop. But still, we think that maybe we need to do something. So there are two motivations to urge us to start some new online events. The first, that we hope to still keep communicating with others while we are staying at home. The other is that a few members of in the small community co-authored an interesting paper published in Nature that year. So this paper was about the variability in the analysis of a single neural image data set. So basically, the organizer or the leading team distribute a single neural imaging data set to 70 analytical teams. And then each team were asked to test line hypothesis and then using their own pipeline. And many of us participate in this big team project. And when the results was published, we think it's very important to let the Chinese community knows that the variability in analyzing fMRI data is huge. So we decided to have an online session we lately called Open Talks. So we share this paper, and many of us are co-authors of this paper. And lately, Open Talks, the host online events, serves three purposes. First, of course, we are still promoting open science. So we invite speakers who are good, who has expertise in open science or reproducibility. Also, we want to offer open, accessible scholarly talks to students or early career researchers from non-elite universities. So in China, there are many universities. Some of them, some elite university has rich resources. They can regularly invite speakers from everywhere. But most non-elite university, they do not have this kind of chance. So we hope that Open Talks provide this kind of open, accessible scholarly talk to them. And the last purpose of Open Talks is to increase the visibility of earlier career researchers' work. So when some early career researchers have published some paper or finished some work and preprint, we invite them to give talk to promote their own work. Sometimes we also invite some speakers to give career development related talks. So in the past few years, we have accumulated a lot of talks. I think now we have almost 80 talks. Most of the talks were recorded and uploaded to a video website called Bilibili, mostly in Chinese. So for example, sometimes even we have speakers who using English, give talk in English, we still translate the title into Chinese so that it will be viewed and listened or watched by more audience. So as Open Talks continue, we attract a lot of early career researchers who volunteer to organize, to be part of the organizing team. So we have slowly formed a steering committee. All of us are early career researchers at the time, and our primary responsibility was organizing online events like Open Talks. And because we have to post blogs and everything on our WeChat official account, so we also have an editing team. The primary responsibility was to typesetting, video editing, and translating, and then put everything on our WeChat official account. It's like blog. So now we have many members of steering committee, and we have a whole editing team. And also we try to bridge the Chinese Open Science Network with the international psychological science community. And so besides WeChat official account, we also archived our files and materials on OSF, and we also built a website in English, and we also have an X or Twitter account, and recently we also registered a Blue Sky account. But because we always lack of volunteers, just as Rosie has repeatedly recruited, we also need more volunteers. But because we do not always have enough people power to do all these things, so many of the accounts are not well maintained. Currently, we mostly primarily like maintain the WeChat official account because most of our members are using it. So for the WeChat account, we have more than 33,000 subscribers, and they regularly read our blogs and attend our online events. We also accumulated a lot of blogs. And most of our subscribers are young, between 18 years old and 35. And we have OSF and Twitter account, as I just mentioned. So now each type of events each type of the online events I just mentioned become a brand of our COSN. For the online events, we have open talks, open minds. Just mentioned it was a journal club. We also have an open tutorial, which we invite senior PhD students and postdoc to give like hands-on tutorial online. And we also have an open plus, which we would just randomly have some idea and invite people to have a panel discussion or roundtable discussion. Most of them are online. Open transfer, which means we translate the English material into Chinese, and we continue doing that because, as I mentioned earlier, many students, they are not good at English, and they are more like they prefer materials in Chinese. And we also use our WeChat platform to recruit collaborators for some meta research or meta science projects. After the pandemic, our in-person events continued. We now have a workshop and hackathons as well. So here is the screenshot of our open tutorials. It's like the tutorials here in Salty, I think, because we also taught people how to use, for example, GitHub, and how to use in Docker to increase our reproducibility. For the translation part, the biggest advancement recently is that we are trying to developing an automatic translation workflow powered by large language models, so that we can translate the materials in more efficiently. As I just showed to you that most of the members in our community are students and early career researchers in China speaking Mandarin. And many of them may not be very fluent in speaking or listening to English. So when we were inviting speakers from Europe or US, we always remind them that maybe they slow down a bit when they are giving a talk. And also because of the East Asia culture, most of our attendees, they will not turn on their camera during the talk. So we need to remind our speakers, especially from Westerners, from Western culture, because sometimes they are scared by a screen of black icons. So that's the kind of style of our committees. And as I just mentioned, we also use the Open Science WeChat account as a platform for collaboration. Actually, we have published many methodology papers and meta science projects. Most of them are in Chinese papers, so that our students can read them and understand them easily. Some of them are also for the international colleagues. For example, we are assessing the sample diversity of big team science, which become quite popular in psychological science. So lessons we have learned so far. In the past 6 or 7 years, we are continuing promoting open science in China using both, mainly in using Chinese, but sometimes we also using English. We found that there are many barriers, especially in developing countries. Many of the barriers are shared with others promoting open science, for example, in Europe or in the US. For example, the lack of incentives for doing for implementing open science practices. In employment and promotion, only publications papers count, right? Instead of what you have done for the community. And language barrier is a huge barrier for many early career researchers. So even some colleagues, some Chinese colleagues studying or working in outside China, they suggest that if you are doing research, you have to use English anyway. Why should we translate all these materials into English? Our experience is that we can help early career researchers to learn faster by doing so, because when they are not so fluent in English, they still learn the techniques. And also the research culture is a big barrier. So in East Asia or in China particularly, most people don't talk about engage in the public affairs very proactively. So for promoting open science practices, very few people will contribute, will be actively engaged in all these kind of events. They will attend, they will be there, listen to the talk or ask questions in the chat box, but mostly they will not stand out and organize an event or something like that. Also, a big barrier is that scarcity of time and resources. So many members of our steering committee, after they move to the next stage of their career, they will slowly retreat because they do not have enough time to contribute to the network because they do not have enough time to do so. So that's a very big issue. Also, we found that it is very important to balance personal create development and contributing to the community. So now the strategy or the slogan we have now is contribute to the community, no matter how trivial it seems to be. Even if you just, for example, help us to edit a blog, it helps. It means a lot to us. Also, we try to to guide our members to combine open science practices with their own research topic instead of just doing open science, because in psychological science or in the psychological science in mainland China, this was dismissed. If all your publications are just related to open science, then you will not be competitive on the job market. And as a grassroots network, now we prioritize the sustainability. So we just try to make things as easy as possible. And for everything, we create templates, so we will save time to do so in the future. And the future of Chinese Open Science Network, we still prioritize surviving. So we hope that we can continue all the educational events we are continue doing. And also we will try to stay as a grassroots network, just as we are doing now. It's unofficial. We do not have legally we do not exist, because if we want to register a non-profit organization or something like that, it's really hard in mainland China. And we're also trying to improve our organization structure. I just had the structure of SOTI. I think it's much more formal than we have now in Chinese Open Science Network. And we're also trying to have more stable leadership. But currently we do not really have a very formal organization structure. So we focus on doing continue our events instead of trying to improve our organizational structure in the past few years. So I think this will become a large issue we need to address in the next few in the near future. So finally, we want to include members from other disciplinaries. For example, Club from ecology. Because of him, I had a chance to get linked with SOTI. And we also try to be connected with other grassroots network like SOTI, as well as other grassroots network in psychological science. So recently, I was invited by the editor of AMPBS to publish a paper about open science in developing countries. Well, open science in developing countries from the perspective of psychological science. So we have together we have like 29 contributors from 12 developing countries. We're trying to summarize what the experience we have got so far and provide very practical tips and guides for researchers in developing countries how to use open resources to lay a solid foundation for their own career development and how to improve their own research practices and how to contribute to the community and then how to be being a leader in the open science movement. So still, this paper is we are revising this manuscript. Just stay tuned. But here are some websites. We have some information on website. You can check it later. So finally, I want to thank all my collaborators and who actually support a lot. Without them, I think maybe I will not be here and present it to you. So also, I wish share my gratitude to the members of the steering committee and the editing team. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much for your presentation. And if anyone has any questions, please feel free to raise your hand. Perfect. Sisi, you can ask your question.
Oh, sorry.
If it works. I don't think we can hear you.
Hear me now?
Yes, perfect.
Yep.
Yeah, something's wrong with my headphones. Okay, I'm gonna ask quickly. Thank you very much for your presentation. I was just wondering about this paper, this study you showed, like in Nature was it about the images that a lot of people did of they divided to different teams. I was just wondering what is the extent of the variability of that variation, like all the different teams, did they came to completely opposite results, or it was like like okay, somehow similar, or yeah, a bit more about that, please.
Okay, yeah, that's a very good question. I didn't show the details of the results. I think there's a similar project in ecology, right, recently. So back to this study, I think most of the results are somehow consistent. So if you conduct a correlation between the results of the from generated from different teams, then you will find that most of the results from most teams are correlated with each other, positively correlated with each other. But of course, there are a few teams are completely opposite to all the others. And there are very few teams, their results are like have low relationship with low correlation with other teams' results. So basically, we found that most of the research team got like similar results. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Juliette?
Yeah, I have a question. If you know if like your open science movement you've like done in psychological science, did it take over into other field? Because us we are mostly into behavioral ecology. So if you've been able to inspire other fields in China.
Okay. Well, yeah, that is really a good question. I should put a small light on that. So after the UNESCO's open science recommendation, the Chinese government actively signed that open science recommendation, and we have a government agency for promoting open science. And the focus of their efforts is on open access currently, and then open data. So they organize conference every year called the OA Week, like Open Access Week, so that they will invite most of them are from library and I think informatics to talk about the trends of open access. But recently, they also contacted me to how science researchers doing open science. So we also have some discourse about the different way or different approach for open science. So to your question, when I participate in those conferences, I found that in other fields, for example, in physics, in geographics, and also in chemistry, they have some like big data set. They're also trying to open this big data set. But what was lacking is that they don't really focus on scientific research practices as we do in psychological science. So they are still like, here we have a big data set we open and we put it on website. You can use it. That's it. And usually they will focus on how big the open data set was and how many publications was generated based on this open data. But in psychological science, because of the open science movement, we focus on maybe full range of open science. We focus a lot on practices, how to make your results reproducible, how to open your own small data set, and how to, for example, pre-register your study. So that's the difference. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, thank you.
Any other question? Perfect. Sahid?
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, cool. Thank you, Chan, for your great presentation. Actually, it was interesting for me because also I located geographically in a kind of in the same situation as you are in China. So we are in West Asia. So yeah, in Iran, for instance. So I think it was great presentation, very informative for me to find kind of a protocol to how we can also deal with these challenges here in the West of Asia. So I was wondering, are there any output or publication or how can I say follow chart that we can follow and we can use and we can explore it for these kind of activities to develop open science network and to maybe also connect with China parties to make it more strong in Asia. So are there any follow chart to just start, to just start in the West of Asia to develop these kind of activities in open science and reproducibility and replicability as well. So it's kind of interesting for me to know. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So your question is that is there like what is the next step? What is there only next step for like create connection between different grassroots network? Is that your question? Sorry.
Yeah. Just to start these kind of activities and also connect
Yes.
and develop it. Yeah, correct.
Exactly. So we just start to do so, and so recently we one of our members went to Washington D.C. to attend a conference, a symposium about open science community around the world. So at that symposium, one of our members, she also found that there are many other like grassroots network everywhere in different area, focusing on different fields or different country. The problem is that we are invisible to each other. So that is the biggest issue. So for example, recently we know that this open science community for South Arabia. Maybe I pronounced the country name wrong, but yeah, so in the Middle East. And we also have like a whole community in Latin America, and we also have like many other grassroots network that are unknown to me. So the problem is we need to create some like a catalog or some list of grassroots network that so we can connect with each other. It's quite important. Otherwise, we are still isolated. So we're trying to firstly finish the practical guide because currently this is the most pressing task for me. And then we're trying to based on that, collaborate with other grassroots network, either in Europe or in the US or in Africa, and so that we can together organize some joint event in the future. Yeah, that will be very, very fascinating to me.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So now the idea is that Sophia will split all of us in different breakout rooms. And so you will just go to the different breakout rooms and people can have a more relaxed conversation with you. And I'll stop the recording as well.